Welcome to another episode of Augie World, the podcast. My name is Eric De Leon, your co-host for today's special podcast episode. I'll be joined today by my co-host, Todd Rogers. Todd is the BIM manager at Walter P. Moore. Todd sits on the board of directors at Augie Inc. as the treasurer and the editor-in-chief for Augie World magazine. Todd is also the man behind the Civil 3DJs blog. As for myself, I sit on the board of directors with Augie, with Todd, as well as the host of the CAD Manager Confessions podcast, founder of CAD Manager School, and the host and producer of Augie World, the podcast. Now, today, I'd like to introduce our next guest, Neil Cross. Neil is from the United Kingdom. Okay, y'all, here I go. So Neil is a Autodesk Expert Elite, founder of Tech 3D, Autodesk University speaker, Intel Vision 2022 Biz Insights speaker, Pluralsight author, let me catch my breath, YouTube content creator. We're going to talk about that probably a lot today. Autodesk software expert, author, consultant, creator, Infmark for Autodesk Inventor, Performance Benchmark Designer and Founder, Dell Influencer, Intel Create Ambassador, 24 years of experience with Autodesk software within mixed engagements, end user, Platinum VAR technical delivery, Autodesk consulting, CAD and Vault manager. Okay.
Jesus.
Welcome to the podcast, Neil.
Thanks. That was longer than I thought it was going to be. You just scraped my LinkedIn there, didn't you?
Yeah, correct. I did.
Yeah.
I tried to do a little bit of my due diligence, but thank you for actually having your LinkedIn up to date because it makes it easier for us to
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyway, man, so let's get into this, man. I think one of the big things that I love that you do so much stuff for the industry, but really is your YouTube content. So where did the origins of really getting into content creation on YouTube really start?
So we're talking 10 years ago. I think it was in around 2012-ish. I'd not long left working in an Autodesk CAD supplier, so the reseller channel. I've been in there for about 10 years. And then I'd left to join one of the biggest clients of that reseller. And I was doing a sort of a Vault, Autodesk Vault data management implementation for this client. It was at the time, one of the biggest manufacturing clients in the UK. And it was a big data management job. It was implementing that and linking in with ERP systems and a whole bunch of customization stuff. So it was a good project to kind of get into after being sort of bubble wrapped, I suppose you could say, working in the reseller channel. So I did a year or so with this client, but then a contract job came along out of the blue. So being sort of self-employed consulting kind of a job came along. And it was the kind of money you couldn't really turn down. And it was also sort of another interesting sort of prospect for me. An interesting job to do as another big manufacturing company, but this time it was sort of global, multiple sites around the world. But it was the first time I'd in my entire life that I'd not actually been employed. I was going solo. So I just thought, you know what, the hell with it. I'm not getting any younger. Life's all about risks. Let's just do it. So I left full-time employment for the first time. Went self-employed. And it was around that time where I thought, I'm kind of missing the job security side of things here. Like this is quite risky what I'm doing. And that's when I started the YouTube channel at that point. And it was more of a self-marketing kind of a thing. It was, what if this contract ends and I've got like nothing in the pipeline? Like, what am I going to do? So I'd not long been in the reseller channel, and we all, I'm sure most of us have been at these sort of reseller events where, you know, the guy's up on stage and he's giving out tips and tricks, very similar to like Autodesk University, where you've got classes with Inventor tips or AutoCAD tips, that kind of thing. So I'd done a lot of those for the reseller. So I had these tips sort of fresh in my head, and I just thought, I'm just going to knock out some tips videos. Nobody's going to watch them, but if one guy working in a company somewhere in the world sees the tip and thinks, oh, we could get this guy in for some training, well, then that's a bit of income. So that's kind of how it started in the very early days. I just threw out some tips that I'd kind of had in my back pocket for these reseller events. They were really bad. The videos were terrible, like absolutely abysmal. But that's we're probably going to talk about it later on. But that's sort of the evolution of a content creator. You start off sort of very modest sort of beginnings, and then you develop things as you go on. I think about 6 to 7 months later, I think after that, that's when I was approached by Autodesk to join their Expert Elite program, because I think things had sort of snowballed quite rapidly because there wasn't really a lot of CAD channels back then. Really, a lot of them were sort of silent CAD tutorial. I mean, we've all come across them. They're infuriating when you land on you're doing a bit of, you're stuck on a problem, you look for some help and you find a video and the guy's just not speaking. It's just like, follow me, right? They're infuriating. So that was the kind of scene was flooded with those type of videos at the time. So I just went into this sort of really exaggerated, over the top, enthusiastic kind of presenter mode when I started my videos. Like, hey, welcome to I was like really hyper kind of a tone to just sort of be the total polar opposite to what was sort of going on at the time. And I mean, looking back on it, it's horrendous, but it sort of clicked with a lot of people. And I think that's sort of made people stick to the video beyond the first sort of 5 to 10 seconds. And so yeah, that's how it started along 10 years ago. Now it was more of I need some kind of customers as I'm going self-employed kind of a thing.
What year was inducted into the EE program?
It was 2000 I think it was the end of 2014, because I started my channel in January 2014.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it was
me. Yeah.
September, October, I think 2014. So I wasn't one of the first. I think the program had been around for a couple of years before that point.
2012 was the first. I was in the second round. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember at the time there was, I think, only 100 to maybe 150 members at that point when I joined. Of course, it's expanded now; it's global. So they're trying to, I guess, recruit people in all parts of the world for different language support. But yeah, it was quite early days. But to be honest, joining that program was a huge catalyst for my channel, actually, because it gave me the opportunity to have contacts with an Autodesk, but also license availability, because I couldn't. I don't remember what I was doing at the time, but I don't think I was able to use the commercial licenses for online content creation, or if your Autodesk had even thought about that at all by that point, right? Because it was really early days. I'm not sure if there was a precedent set for using licenses in online media, but yeah, having those licenses through the Expert Elite program was like really useful for my channel.
Nice. All right, so that's how it started. So now 10 years later, how is it going?
Oh, oh.
You get yourself in a little bit of trouble, don't you?
How long have we got? How long have we got? It's been an up and down road over the 10 years. It's got me all kinds of good opportunities. Like you mentioned in the introduction that I was an Intel Vision speaker. That was one of the highlights of my career, was being invited by Intel. They flew me out to Texas, and then I launched the new mobile CPU platform that Intel had just launched. It was the Core HX platform. It replaced the mobile Xeons that it had in all their workstations up until that point. So I was doing the demonstration for this new mobile CPU, which went out to the world, and that was all made possible because they found me through my YouTube channel. So I've had some good opportunities over the years, but it's been a grind. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a slog. In a lot of, in the early days, when you first get started, you can make a video in sort of 20 minutes, right? You just turn on whatever Camtasia or whatever I was using at the time to record the screen, and you just like waffle on for 20 minutes. And if you make a mistake, who cares? You just blow past it. And because you don't really have an audience at that point, you don't really care. But then as the years went on and I dabbled into different things. I think the first time a hardware vendor actually got in touch with me was 3D Connection to say, do you want to check out one of our, I think it was one of their 3D mice things that they've got. And then you start thinking, well, I need some production value here. I need cameras now. I need a tripod. I need B-roll. Do I need a script? I don't know. So then you've got to start producing the videos, and it's very different. And your audience grows. And over the years, you fine tune a lot of things. It's one of these weird sort of situations where the more technology and investment you put into it, the longer it takes to actually get the job done. You've got more cameras to set up. You've got more microphones to set up. You've got more complicated software to deal with. You've got more planning to do. And So yeah, over the years, it just kind of snowballed into becoming much bigger than I really ever sort of planned it ever being. So a 20-minute video over the years became sort of 2 days to make. Some Intel videos that I've done some sponsored sort of showcase videos for Intel over the years have taken 3 weeks to make. And that's in addition to the day job that I've always been doing as well. So for a lot of the years, I've been working a day shift and a night shift, which really took its toll over the years. But you kind of you plug away at it. You think, it's going to be worth it in the end. It's going to be, it's the means to an end that you're doing all this. And it kind of it did pay off in some respects in terms of sort of recognition, respect, the amount of people you're helping in the community. It pays off in that way, but as a sort of justification of my time, it was a struggle in the end. So at this point in time today, as we sit here, I'm on a bit of a sabbatical from YouTube. I've not really uploaded much in the last few months, and that's just because I needed to take a break from it because it was becoming a lot of not necessarily a lot of work, but it was just consuming my life. I think it was 22. I think the year 22. I took an entire year out of employment just to work on YouTube, just like as a sort of almost like a last gasp kind of crack of the whip sort of thing.
Your videos are very professional, by the way.
They're amazing.
Job at the editing on those.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. And that's part of where the time goes into it all. Sort of camera setup, editing, learning Premiere Pro, the video editing software that you need to do that, and color grading, captions, transitions, all that kind of stuff. It's so much time to get the videos to look like that. And most of the creators who are in the field, not necessarily the 3D CAD field, but maybe technology or the automotive space or whatever, they'll do that, and then eventually they'll be able to hire editors to do that sort of work for them. But I don't really have that luxury. The channel doesn't get enough throughput to sort of financially justify bringing anybody else on. So yeah, they look great, and that's sort of part of the progression. You start very modest, but then you build up over the years, in that the time then starts becoming an issue to the point where you have to sort of sit and think to yourself, sort of 9 or 10 years later, is this actually worth is this a justifiable use of my time sort of doing all this? And that's kind of where I am today. So yeah, I took a sabbatical just to sort of reset things because it was becoming very consuming. But the feedback that I get from the videos is massively positive. I've diversified over the years on the kind of content that I've been working on. It started off as just Autodesk Inventor tips and tricks and tutorials and that kind of thing. Diversified into hardware for the people that use the software from Autodesk. So 3D mice, laptops, even through the pandemic, looking at webcams as people, went to work from home, webcam advice, that kind of thing. So as I've diversified, I've sort of dipped my toes into various different audiences and gathered audiences from different places. And that's been both beneficial and troublesome, as you find you make a video on webcams and you might find some guy that uses, I don't know, he's not even in engineering at all, but he's looking for a webcam and he subscribed to you. And then the next video you release is an inventor tips and tricks video. And he's like, what the heck's this? I just watched a webcam video and now you're doing a CAD video. What's this? So it's been tricky to kind of jump between topics. So yeah, it's been a bit of a strange ride over the 10 years. I've gained lots of experience from that. I've lots of observations about how the industry works, about how content creation works, about how the overall video space within, trying to create online tips and tricks for CAD software does and doesn't work. So there's a lot of observations there, and it's been an interesting 10 years, just to say the least.
Now, for a lot of us that don't, we follow you, right? We see your content out there is amazing. And one thing that I love to ask guests is, what's like your origin story? What got you into CAD back in the day? What inspired you? How did the Neil Cross of today, where did it all start?
That's another strange story. So I started when I was 16. So in the UK, when you turn 16, well, you do your GCSEs in your final year at high school. Your GCS, I don't know what the US equivalent would be, but they're your sort of high school final exams. Used to be called O levels, GCSEs, and then those exams, how well you do on them dictates whether or not you go to sixth form or college. And at the time, this was sort of 1997. My parents were very sort of leaning towards just get a job, get an apprenticeship, forget college, forget university, get an apprenticeship, and the company will send you to university, that kind of thing. And in the late 90s, apprenticeships were a thing in the UK. There was a lot of big, like Siemens, for example, they had apprenticeship programs going where they just pull people out of high school who've got good grades, and then they train them up as engineers or electricians or whatever, send them to college, put them through university. So they've got that sort of long-term growth of somebody that can embed into the company and sort of build them around the culture of the company. So I did that, and I joined the local water board over here, Northumbrian Water. They had a subsidiary called Entech, and it was basically there's no other way to sugarcoat this. They designed sewage plants, which wasn't a very flattering job for a 16-year-old to go into, but it was a trainee civil
Comes out
engineering
clear.
position.
The water comes out clear.
It doesn't go in clear. I tell you that. That's part of the job I didn't like. It was civil engineering apprenticeship. So there's me at 17, and I was quite an immature 17-year-old. Hadn't really got much life experience. I didn't really know what was going on in life. My parents were just like, just get a job, right? Just take it, money. And there's me thinking, oh, I can get a car now. I've got a paycheck. I can buy a car. So I did all that. And they put me through sort of very early stages of college for civil engineering, which I know, Todd, your company is a civil engineering company, isn't it?
Civil and structural. Yep.
Civil and structural. Yeah. I at that age, I just could not get into it. Soil calculations and all that kind of thing.
That's not where you met Brent Garden, is it?
No, he came in a little bit later on.
Okay.
He came in a little bit later on. But yeah, I'd started this apprenticeship, and sort of 2 or 3 years into it, it was just not for me. Calculating how fast crap goes down a pipe was just not what I wanted to do as a 17-year-old. But as much as it was a trainee civil engineering position, it was basically cheap AutoCAD labor that they were bringing in. So I was sitting on AutoCAD back. It was release 40 in 97.
So very good release, by the way.
It was yeah. I've got fond memories of that. It was really not necessarily. Yeah, it was simple actually. When you look at how AutoCAD is today, it was a simple release. Yeah. I remember it being quite sturdy and reliable as well.
Very sturdy.
Yeah.
13 was horrible, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was quite fortunate to dodge that one.
Yeah.
It was just cheap AutoCAD. I just remember sitting down, just doing AutoCAD drawings all day, just drawing big circles for sewage tanks and pipes, just parallel lines for pipes and stuff. And as much as I didn't really have any interest in the actual work I was doing, I was quite fascinated by AutoCAD itself. Just the program, just mastering a bit of software. Because up until that point, PCs were, it was the very early days of PCs, but the internet hadn't happened yet. But I was quite fascinated by computers and the software. So I did that for about 3 years. And then very randomly, I joined the police. I was a police officer for a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wasn't very good at that either because I'm not a policeman anymore.
So you were a Bobby?
I was a Bobby on the beat, yeah.
So wait. So you went to police academy?
Yeah.
And then you went through all that training, got to learn how to do a gun, take down people.
We don't have guns over here. We had a truncheon. Yeah,
okay.
Picture the typical UK Bobby with his big sort of knob hat on, with it running down the street with a stick and a
billy stick.
Yeah,
come back, here. Bobby with a billy stick.
Hey you! now then, come back. Yeah, it was pretty much that. It was an interesting experience from what I remember of it, because it was 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, and actually 22, 23 years ago. But like I said before, I was very immature for my age. I have no idea how I even passed the police academy sort of exams and all the recruitment and all that kind of thing. I think the local force might have had some kind of mandate to bring in younger officers or something at the time. And I must have been able to say all the right things, got in. And I was a bit wet behind the ears back then, to be honest. Like I'd not really experienced much of life. And, I was stick thin. A gust of wind would have blew me over. I was that bad. Baby faced. I mean, I didn't look a day older than 13 when I was 20, you know. But I give it a crack. I mean, this is a whole other story in of itself, so I'm not going to it. But it just didn't work out. I tried my best, things didn't work out. So after a year, I kind of just threw the towel in and left. And then I thought, well, now what am I going to do? To go back to my sort of civil engineering kind of AutoCAD background, which wasn't much of a background at that point. I'd only been in it for sort of 3 years. But then I joined a highways, found another sort of trainee position in a highways agency company designing roads. I wasn't designing the roads, again, AutoCAD labor. So I joined this company, did more AutoCAD drafting. There wasn't really much 3D going on back then. This is sort of 2001, 2002. I think Inventor had only just sort of fired its engines up and it was getting going. So I did about 3 years, I think, at this highways company doing AutoCAD drawings, got more into AutoCAD. There's the releases out, 2000i come out and 2002 AutoCAD, and the AutoCAD was starting to get a little bit better than it had been in the past, a little bit more modern, new features coming in, quite interesting features. And I was just mastering the software. And then the local CAD supplier at the time, they were doing a recruitment drive for sort of a help desk sort of position. And I had a friend who knew somebody who worked at the CAD supplier, and I got an interview for this CAD supplier. And with my background of knowing AutoCAD quite well, with AutoCAD being sort of the major seller back then, sort of still is, I suppose, at this point. And also having a strong IT background as well, with knowing a lot about computers and fixing them and how Windows worked and just the intricacies of how the software worked with hardware. In those days, CAD suppliers had quite a strong presence in IT that sell the software and the hardware at the same time, sort of this all-in-one IT solution. It's very different now, but that's kind of how it was back then. I got the job working in the CAD supplier, and that's how it all started. I started as just working on the technical support desk, very early days, just answering your typical AutoCAD help calls, right? Where's my cursor gone? Where's my toolbar gone? Why is my mouse not working? I don't know. It's a mouse. Is it plugged in? Right.
Might put a tape on it.
Yeah, someone's pranking you. I don't know. So it was just help desk stuff in the early days. And then as the years went on, Autodesk were sort of diversifying their business. They were making a lot of acquisitions. They were firing up various different business units, and Inventor started to become more prominent within the manufacturing space. So as a CAD supplier, we could either go down the Revit route or the Inventor route. And at the time, I mean, the guy who owned the CAD supplier, he's done very well out of it, but he kind of made the best call at the time, but the wrong call in the long run. But he sold off the entire architectural unit, all the architectural clients, to another CAD supplier, and just wanted to focus just on manufacturing, which at the time, like I say, that seemed like the right thing to do. But now AEC architecture
Should have been the other way around.
It should have been the other way around. Yeah, I mean, AEC just dwarfs manufacturing at this point in terms of revenue and sales and services. But yeah, so it could have went down I could have went down the Revit route. It was basically my entire career pivoted on that one decision, I suppose. It was, he sold off Revit, and I ended up focusing on Inventor. So I ended up working over the next sort of 8 years as a training instructor within the CAD supplier, doing training courses for Inventor, for AutoCAD, for various other Autodesk portfolios, doing pre-sales demos. Back then were a big thing, going into a client with a projector and a salesman, and the whole sales spiel about it. You're AutoCAD. Well, look at this. Here's your models in 3D, and everyone's just like, oh, it's voodoo, right? It's like they've never, because it were good days, man. They were such good days when nobody had seen anything in 3D before, and then you walk in with their designs in 3D, and they're just like, and that was job satisfaction back then. Converting people over to 3D. So I was doing all that, installations, going on site to do installs, that kind of stuff. So I sort of cut my teeth with the Autodesk product line through that CAD supplier role. So Inventor, AutoCAD, then into Vault. In the latter days, more heavily with Vault than Inventor, so the data management stuff. And that then takes me up to when I left in 2011, I think 2011 or 2012, to join the client. So yeah, my career over the years, I've never, and that's the sort of strange thing about my career. I've got quite a, within a bubble, within the Autodesk bubble, I've got quite a big reputation as being sort of the inventor tips and tricks guy, the expert on inventor within sort of the online content creation space. But I've never worked a day in my life as a designer. I've never actually designed a thing in my life other than maybe a 3D printed phone stand or something. Like I've never actually
Pretty funny.
I've done some
That's pretty
AutoCAD.
funny.
Yeah, that's it. Like in the very early days of my channel, I was like really quite conscious about that because like I didn't want to come across like I'm an engineer because I'm not. I'm a software guy. I've always been a software guy. I've always installed the software, trained people to use the software, and then supported the software and maintained it. Never actually really sat down and used Inventor as such. So yeah, I was quite conscious about that when I started the channel because I didn't want to like moonlight as an engineer and or give any advice that came across as engineering advice because I'm like I am not qualified for this. Like I've got no engineering qualifications at all. I'm a software guy. So yeah, it's strange. So my entire career has mainly been managing it. Now it's sort of changed over the years because the last, I would say, 10 years, I've worked exclusively in industry. But it's been managing sort of the data management side of things, the Vault Professional data handling side of things. So I've got a lot of hands-on experience with
There's
that.
a handful of you Vault guys out there for sure.
There is, and it's beneficial to us as well because it's such a niche. As a consultant, you can kind of charge what you want as a Vault, within reason, obviously, but it's lucrative work as a Vault consultant because it's so specialized. There's very few people that actually do that.
Yeah, nobody can configure it anywhere. They're like, I need help.
Yeah,
and I just got Vault. Nothing's connecting.
Yeah, if you do it wrong as well, it goes badly, really, really badly, really quickly. And that was a lot of the jobs we had is in the CAD supplier was going in and fixing just terrible installations. The local guy in the office, the go-to guy, Jim, who's the expert on AutoCAD because he's used it since release 14 and he only uses the circle and the line button. That's it. And he's done that for 20 years, right? Jim, how hard can it be, right? So he'll install Vault himself, just click next, next, next. And then before you know it, the company's dumped their entire data set into Vault, installed badly, and then it just all goes to hell. And then you've got to come in later on and fix it. So there was a lot of those sort of jobs, and that kind of got me into the sort of the weeds of Vault to understand how it works and how it all sort of comes together.
Cool.
So one of the things that we have in common, Neil, is that I also am a Pearl site author as well.
Ah, cool.
And so I'm just curious, are you still doing courses for them? And what was that journey like?
Yeah, that was one of the first sort of breaks that I had out from YouTube into other spaces. So this was before sort of the Intel gigs. Before I was just making videos just on my own, just in my own little world until a girl called Stephanie came along out of nowhere and just said, "Hey, do you want to do some courses for this site?" I've never heard of it before. Plural site, what the hell is this? Yeah. And when you're on YouTube, you get a lot of junk emails when you're on YouTube, just
for sure,
absolute spam that comes through. Half of them are scams, But I looked it up and I just thought, sure, why not? Right? They've got quite a big catalog here. They're credible. They seem to have good history. They're well regarded. So I just thought, sure, why not? And they paid well as well. I mean, that was part of it. As an author, they reward you well for your time, which is something you don't get at all on YouTube. The return on your time was really good. And yeah, it was a lot of work because they were really strict with you'll know this, they were really strict with how the content comes together with clips and durations and
I had my try at it. They kept telling me there's too much puffing and blowing in the microphone. I'm like, you're driving me nuts, man. So I'm done. So I never get to publish anything.
I was really thankful for that, and as much as it was a pain in the backside, I was approached by can we mention other brands on here?
We're good.
Right. So Skillshare is another online creation education.
Marketplace for courses. Yeah.
Yeah. So they approached me about 3 years ago, maybe a bit longer, to do the same sort of thing. Do you want to be an author on Skillshare to do some courses? So I was like, I've heard of Skillshare because every YouTuber on the planet at the time was bumping Skillshare, right? They had this huge sort of marketing drive at the time. And I went on to Skillshare. I signed up they give me like some code that give me 6 months or something to take a look, because I won't endorse anything unless I've seen it myself, used it myself, and can vouch for it. So I was like, right, I need to check Skillshare. So I went on it and I looked up some of their CAD courses, and they were absolutely horrific. Like, every course that I went on was awful, like abysmal. And this was after Pluralsight, and it made me appreciate why Pluralsight was actually so strict and why that was a good thing. Because you mentioned like huffing and puffing, that was Skillshare. You know, the guy was like, right, welcome to my course. Excuse me. Oh, my dog's at the door, right? Oh. And you sat there watching this, and you're like, what the hell, man? Get on with it. And he's like coughing, and the instructor's coughing into your ear, and he's umming and erring every few seconds, and his buttons are massive, and you can't see what's going on. I thought, this is dog crap, awful.
Now I know who Todd's going to get a hold of next.
Yeah. I tried to be so perfect at it too. I was like, and this you click over here, and they're like, there's too much puffing in the microphone.
That was the hardest part, editing out the ums. That was it took forever to edit those courses. But like you said, Neil, though, it gave another level of standard of ways you put content together. You know, even now as I do podcasting, a lot of those foundational things that they taught me during the courses that I made, I still carry with me today. And it's been, 7+ years later.
Yeah. And yeah, they were excellent with that. It did add a lot of time, and it made delivering the course a little bit more difficult, because you had to separate the course into their defined clip sizes, which you would then have to structure the course around their requirements, rather than just talk for 10 minutes about how extrude works. You had to condense it or maybe split it up instead.
Correct.
So it was a pain from that respect, but it made you appreciate, well, after I saw Skillshare, at least, it made me appreciate why they do it, because when you go to Pluralsight, you get a consistent experience from no matter what video you go to.
Yeah.
Whereas Skillshare, you just had people that marketing themselves. You know, you'd visit a course, and it was like, hey, I'm Jim from CAD3D.com. Come to my, and it was like they were selling themselves through these courses, you know, referring people to their websites. I was like, this is not on. But no, I'm not doing it. Well, Pluralsight shut down. Unfortunately, they shut down their team about
the AEC team. Yeah.
Everything to do with design, apparently.
Yeah,
the whole thing got shut down, so there was no new courses being and I didn't even know anything about it, to be honest. It just happened. And because you get assigned an editor, right, when you're a Pluralsight author. And I think I got to a point where I was like, I need another job, and work's drying up a little bit, so I need another. So I emailed my editor, and it just bounced. I was like, where's he gone? So then I had to like do some digging to find out that he'd been laid off, made redundant, and the whole
now
team.
I know why they're not advertising in the magazine again.
Yeah, because because I had a big pipeline, so because I was a Bentley guy, so they obviously there's a lot of Autodesk guys out there in the marketplace, but nobody's making really videos for MicroStation courses. And so they reached out to me and said, hey, you have this experience doing this? Yeah, sure. And that's where I have a couple of MicroStation courses and an InfraWorks course. And
so that's what they wanted me for, was InfraWorks.
Yeah, correct. And so it was interesting, though, because as soon as I got done with the InfraWorks one, I said, okay, I'd like to go back and, I basically split up MicroStation into, my editor was awesome. He's like, okay, I said, I have this mega course, but it's broken down. He's like, listen, Eric, you can make more money if you just, each of those modules, like annotation, how to print, how to draw, break those up into separate courses, and then we'll pay you your author fee. And so instead of one mega one, you do, I think it was like 7 micro ones, and you can 7 times your experience. Yeah. But when I went back, that's what they were like, yeah, we're going away from AEC and kind of, like you said, design CAD. We're going to solely, at that point was programming, anything with programming and cybersecurity. And so, like you said, all of a sudden I had like a backlog of like 10 different courses and all of a sudden they're like, sorry. I'm like, oh man, missed out on that one by not. But like you said, I was trying to pump them out as fast as I could. But at the same time, though, I mean, a lot of it was like myself for not being able to pump them out fast enough. But at the same time, though, their requirements just it took you 3 months to just do one to do one course.
Yeah, and
It's
they had so many portals like author kits and various web portals where all the information was sort of fragmented around. It was
yeah,
difficult to find what you needed and get a like a definitive guide on exactly what they want. So you ended up a lot
yeah,
of back and forth with your editor, and
yeah, for sure.
it was a good experience to sort of to see how that side of the world works and just
Yeah, for sure.
to see it. But did you get did you get on the referral program to sort of give out links to free trials and all that kind of thing to
Yeah,
earn?
I did, but I didn't. I had it baked into like my like on LinkedIn. I have a thing where I post about it, but I only have a couple of courses that are very obviously Bentley is way more niche, even though it's big, but not. I say a lot of people use Bentley, but not as much as Autodesk or Civil 3D. And so like my wife just makes she goes, hey, I see your $30 royalty check you got
Yeah,
that got deposited.
yeah,
So, but it was a good experience. I mean, obviously, like you said, they take care of people on the upfront with your course fee to get it going. Unless you're one of the top guys doing, programming, cybersecurity, and now probably, AI and other things like that. At least my residuals aren't as big. So
no, mine aren't either. But I'm just thinking back now. Actually, my courses were done on Autodesk's 2016 suite, so it would
yeah,
have been 2015 that I did all of this.
yeah,
I
correct.
still get the royalty check. I don't know idea how. I mean, I don't know who's learned. They shouldn't be learning on 2016 anymore, right?
Correct.
It should be shut down and because it's that old. But yeah, you get dribs and drabs through from them, but it's a shame because it had quite a lot of potential. It was a good
Yeah,
platform.
yeah,
So yeah, that was a shame. And of course, there's other ones. There's LinkedIn Learning. There's Udemy, all those ones. But
yeah. CAD learning and things like that. Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. For me, I was at the time pumping out a lot of videos on YouTube anyway, so I was like, I'm kind of doing my bit sort of thing at
yeah,
the
for
time.
sure.
There's only so much I can do, and also Pluralsight were quite. I remember that at the time they were quite strict on what you couldn't or what you couldn't release outside of Pluralsight if there was a
Correct,
conflict with what you had on your course.
correct,
So
correct, correct.
the more courses I made on Pluralsight, the less I'd be able to do on YouTube.
Yeah, about conflict of interest and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, right on. So let me ask you this here real quick. So in your journey, because you founded Tech 3D, maybe explain to us kind of what you're doing day to day. And with that, what are some, this is what I always find fascinating for guys like you, right? It's like you're helping consultants, you're helping the consulting world. What is it that we keep on doing over and over again that we just aren't, we could do better, but what, obviously people like you exist. So what is it that the industry is like just really not getting a grasp of? And you come in and bonk us over the head, with your little billy stick and, and helping us out. I'm just curious, is there any trends that you're seeing? Obviously you're keeping yourself in business. So
Yeah, in the early days, it was people looking for a lot of it was people looking for free education. That was what kind of got my channel going. Because getting Inventor training, AutoCAD training, any Autodesk software training, InfraWorks, whether it be AutoCAD electrical, anything, it's expensive, right? To go to a reseller and get a training course, maybe $1,200 a day, 4-day course. That's a lot of
mhm.
money. The average person can't really afford that. So, I was finding a lot of people coming across my videos were people either sort of trying to self-teach themselves, probably on not very legitimate licenses. They were just trying to figure it out, and then
Yeah,
they'd get stuck, and then they'd go online. And fortunately, by that point, I was quite well embedded into YouTube in terms of SEO and search results. So if anyone searched anything for Inventor, I was right the way up there. So I was getting a lot of that. And that was the main propellant for my channel. And then over the years, I got a huge, probably still do, to be honest, a massive variety of users in my audience, from, like I say, just regular guys just learning to figure it out, through to CAD managers, through to procurement managers for IT, because I went into the hardware side of things, through to just regular engineers, self-employed consultants, people working in NASA, just people working at Rolls-Royce, huge people working in huge companies would just find my videos, you know. And then there's only so many videos you can knock out on one subject, right? So after I did about 200 or 300 videos on Inventor, there comes a point where you're like, well, I'm now looking for problems to solve. I'm looking for things to do.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to start diversifying, not only because of ideas, but also your own sanity. You need to change things up a little bit. So then I tried looking at Vault, and that's when I sort of met, I guess, came into contact with a lot of other Autodesk consultants who probably, I don't know if they needed the help that I was putting out there, but probably just looking for validation that they're not the only ones going through the madness that I was going through. Because a lot of videos on my channel were me venting, just going crazy on stupid things that Autodesk were doing. And so these guys would come along and go, yes, I thought the same thing. Friend, oh, let's do it. Right. And so yeah.
Why are we paying these guys?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But to be fair, they're better now than I think that, I don't know. I perceive them to be better than they used to be. But in the early days, there was some silly decisions being made, some silly things happening in the software, and it was just open season to have a dig at them. And a lot of times it wasn't really me digging at them for any reason other than I just needed to get it off my chest. I just needed to externalize this frustration that I was feeling. And to be honest, that got me in touch with a lot of people. Credit to the guys at Autodesk who I was venting at, like the Inventor product team. They didn't take it. They might have took it personally, but they didn't show that they took it personally. And I made a lot of connections through that. Which
you're actually a voice for a lot of people, believe me.
Yeah, and the channel sort of changed over the years from just being tips and tricks to then being Autodesk news. I've covered a lot of what's going on in the world of Autodesk over the years.
Yeah, we want to hear about that too.
We'll get there. Yeah.
It's been a ride. It has been a ride, but I'm now conscious that whenever I do release a video now, it goes through Autodesk. You know what I mean? It goes through it like a Porsche, right through to the top. You know, so if I complain about something or if I make a comment, I have to make sure I'm right about it and I can back it up because it goes through to the highest level. And that makes making content a little bit less, I wouldn't say less fun, but it just makes it more regimented. You know what I mean? Because you've got to be very careful about what you say. Whereas in the early days, I was just some nobody just waffling into the ether. But yeah, it's a different story now.
So, okay, I guess with that said, right, I think for me, which I think a lot of people can appreciate at least your honesty, can appreciate that you're probably, like Todd says, you are speaking some truths of you're speaking what everybody's thinking, which is at the same time though, there's always got to be somebody, which we appreciate, who's willing to go out on that ledge and stand on the box and be able to stand up for us. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard for us because, we're, for the regular person, right? You have an audience, you built that up, but now you have a platform that you can do something like that, speak some truths, right? And it goes straight to the top. Not a lot of people can do that. Obviously, like Uncle Ben and Spider-Man, great responsibility,
Yeah.
with your responsibility comes, with it comes great responsibility, right? And so with this power, quote unquote power that you have. But so one, I'm just real curious because when I saw your post on Autodesk 2022, right?
Ooh,
I felt the ripple, right? And then in my mind, I'm going, so, and then you had a follow-up with the automotive one,
yeah.
2023, the follow-up. Again, it was Autodesk's two major events after a world pandemic. We all know they're probably trying to do the best that they can. And here's these two videos, again, I say that however you want to take that, right? So they're doing what they need to do to get these events going, right? And so what I'm curious is, what was, well, it's two things. One is I know what got you to put out those two videos respectfully. But kind of what was the ripple effect, right? What was the backlash? Because the first thing that I thought was this dude is going to get his expert elite ripped from him because you went straight to the you went straight to the jugular of the man up top, and basically, to me, it's like a punked him in the throat. So, with your billy stick. And so I'm just curious if there's some story there, because I'm fascinated to hear the back end of all of that. What was the ripple effect? What was the backlash? Are you on probation? Is this really Neil? Is it an AI version? Anyway, can you share some stories?
Get a bit of probation.
Anyway, is there anything with that you could share to us for the general audience listening? We're curious.
So that video, if anyone hasn't seen it and isn't familiar with it, it was called Autodesk Fire Festival 2.0 or something like that. So it was in reference to last year's Autodesk University, which was at New Orleans. The event was an absolute shambles. It was a disgrace.
Yeah, we were there.
Terrible.
We've had 20 odd years of Vegas, or however long it's been going for. And Vegas has just been a blast. It's been a scream. It's a well-oiled machine. Everyone that goes there knows what to expect. Lots of people don't like Vegas, but generally the event just goes very well. And this was the first year where they decided to change location. Well, I think they've been at different locations in the past, but first time in a long time. And it was because they wanted to disassociate their brand with Vegas, sleaziness, and they wanted to be more upmarket, really, with their brand vibes. And traveling around the country seems like the best thing to do for them. And first stop was New Orleans.
Last stop, New Orleans.
Last stop, New Orleans. Yeah. It was
the city with the worst crime rate in the United States. That's
yeah. I remember we were there being told to sort of don't go outside unless
take your lanyards off.
Yeah. People were getting mugged, and people from the event were getting mugged and all sorts. And
is it verified that somebody really got stabbed? I heard that through the grapevine. Water cooler talk.
I mean, and the thing is, how do you verify this unless the person who, you know what I mean, like
who got stabbed says something? Ooh, that's who I need to get on the podcast. So if you're listening to this, if you got stabbed, if you got stabbed or mugged, or mugged at AU 2022 in New Orleans, please get a hold of me. I would love to get you on this. Anyway.
Yeah, I had it on good authority. There's a guy that I used to work with at the old CAD supply that I worked at. He said that he knows he works with the company that employs the person that this happened to, and he verified that it did happen. But it's still sort of a third party confirmation, but it's as close as I could get. But there was other stuff, people having guns pulled on them. There was a young lad that works for Autodesk took a right hook to the jaw outside his hotel one of the mornings, just to walked out in the morning.
Other people got drugged and mugged.
People got drugged. Yeah, the whole lot. And things happen in Vegas as well, but not to that extent. Not to the point where the whole event is being told to watch their backs and be careful. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just that. It was a combination of factors. The food at the event was horrific. It was, I remember, was it the first keynote on the first day? Within 5 minutes of the keynote, that all the
gone
tins full of food gone. Yeah, so people were sort of slowly coming out of the doors because 8,000-10,000 people, however many people were there, slowly filtering through into the kitchen area or the main hall where the food was. By the time you could get there, it's gone, and there was no restocking of the food. So you've got people paying thousands of dollars and pounds, euros to get themselves over here, and they're not even being fed. And there wasn't really much communication at the time as to what was happening. People were just turning up empty tins and looking around and what's going on. So there was a bit of Autodesk clarified it later on, and I can't remember if there was an apology in there or not. Probably not. But there was we will do better sort of a message. But then after that, they had in the app that activity wall.
Yeah.
Where people would, people were free to express their experiences at the event, and Autodesk just went sort of shift, left click, delete on like a whole day's worth of feedback. And I'm like, what? Can't do that. So, can you hear that? There's an ice cream van outside my house.
Oh, nice.
Not to mention the egg rolls and wieners.
Oh
for
my goodness.
food.
Yeah, and I remember what kind of my lasting vision of New Orleans was when we went to the expert elite class, which was right at the back of the event. So it was like
Like 2 miles.
2 mile walk to this bloody room, which it's not the team's fault, right? They can't do anything about that. But there was food. But what was the food? It was a little Tupperware box with this like a banana, I think,
Yeah, and
wrapped in foil or something. And the sandwich was like worse than what you get at a gas station. It was just like rock hard bread with like a bit of, you know,
like UK bread, huh?
it was absolutely rank. And so it was just a combination of all these things: the bad food, the layout, the walking. The classes weren't that great either. The ones I went to weren't. They were more like sort of people grandstanding and sort
Oh
of
yeah.
selling themselves and selling their business via a class, and quite unprepared. A lot of and I think that's going to happen again this year, but we can talk about that later.
That's what I want to get into too, is this year. I mean, look at all the people that were declined to speak this year. Where is all that knowledge coming from this year? From what I understand, it's going to be a gigantic sales fest.
It's either going to, well, from my LinkedIn feed, from what I can see, the majority of speakers are actual employees from Autodesk. I know I've seen at least 4 or 5 Autodesk employees who've got multiple classes accepted. Other people in the feed tend to, there's quite a few consultants working for CAD suppliers and service providers. So there's your sales pitch there. But what really annoys me about the Autodesk University selection, I've raised this as feedback in the past, probably in my blunt, sort of very unfiltered way, but allowing people to deliver more than one class is not good for the event. There's no way anybody can put the preparation needed into a class to make it worthwhile if they've got 2 or 3 classes to do. Absolutely no way. And that what you end up with is somebody going to Autodesk University as a speaker with 2 or 3 classes and just basically having a slide deck and just winging it, just freestyling it as they get there, just we'll find something to talk about, right? And then you get the people in the class, the attendees, just, oh, what's this? This isn't worth my time. And that class is a huge chunk of their allocated time at the event. You know, you only got a limited amount of time at Autodesk University. So if someone decides to go to your class, that's a significant chunk of their ticket that they've gave to you. You need to make it worth their while. And these people with multiple classes, they can't put the prep needed in.
I totally agree. I kind of bombed in 2018 when I had 3 classes. And I was like, why have I got 3 classes? You know, I was hoping for 1, obviously, but they gave me 3. And you're exactly right. I totally bombed in 2018 on all 3 classes.
I don't understand how they can't see that, though, because the classes, maybe, I don't know if it's just me, but when I've been a speaker, I put months of work into the class. Like I had a 100-page handout, which was indexed and had pictures, and it was the Bible for how to buy a computer for 3D CAD, right? The whole class, it was, the presentation was all animated with proper transitions and stuff. It wasn't just a slide deck. It was like an actual video with interjected videos in between with B-roll and, you know, up close shots of computers and stuff. So it was like an experience. It was like being in a YouTube video kind of a class. And it took me months to do that. And even then I thought it wasn't enough. I still thought I could do more. And then you go to other classes and you see the guy just stand there with his slide deck, his stationary slide deck with his bullet points. He's just reading the bullet points. And, you know, this is not worth the time that people are sitting through it, right? They didn't expect this. They expect more. They expect to learn. But a lot of it last year was just like grandstanding. People just giving their right, just like thought spewing everywhere. Like, oh, this is how it could be in the future. This is what might happen in the future. This is what I think might happen in the future. So this isn't learning. This is just
I
you
went to
projecting
some
your
classes
opinion.
that were nothing but a PowerPoint presentation. No demonstration of the software whatsoever, just a whole hour of a PowerPoint. The most boring shit I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
And then the grandstanding, right? I was really, because I'm in CAD, you know, for infrastructure. So Todd and I work in the similar kind of space. You know, we're competitors, you know, at our day jobs. But I'm very fascinated with digital project delivery, right? And the shift of away from plan sheets in the field for construction, of using models, digital terrains to actually build the infrastructure, roads, bridges, buildings, right? Yeah, like I started one. It was basically two Autodesk folks running the presentation on the basically the death of the plan sheet. I was left very pissed because it was. I'm like it was. I appreciate all the smart people in the world, but like if you're not in production, you're not leading the front line in delivering projects with sheets. I mean, it was a really a pie in the sky thesis of where it could go with really no real tangible way of how we're going to get there. Besides, you guys suck. How you're doing it? You need to be doing it like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, I left like, I mean, because obviously we know for us to go to construction with no plans, we know that's going to be a journey. If we can even get away with that. And to me, when we talk about that, the elephant in the room is how is the engineer going to stamp a model? How is the engineering going to stamp a 3D terrain model, a 3D pipe network? I mean, we can do all these great ideas of how we're going to do it, but to me, from the software side, but there is just some disconnect of the real world and how we're going to do that. But anyway, but I could totally see where you're talking about, where it was really just grandstanding of a thesis. And
Yeah.
I left very, a class per the title, I was left very deeply disappointed because that room was full of people just like me wanting to hear what the future was. And it was, anyway, it was disappointing.
Yeah, I've often wondered what many of the Autodesk University attendees really think about classes delivered by Autodesk employees, because in some ways, interfacing with an Autodesk employee can be quite reassuring because they are the first party. They, in theory, should have the best in terms of inside knowledge on what's going on. So I don't know if Autodesk think, hey, if we deliver most of the classes ourselves, then the customers at the university are getting a better experience. It's straight from us, right? But at the same time, that's not actually true, because that's what the likes of the Expert Elite programs for. It's for industry experts.
Exactly. A lot of that stuff Autodesk employees put out is smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
You worked for a reseller. I worked for a reseller. We put out smoke and mirrors.
Absolutely.
And, the 10 years that I worked for a reseller, it's like, man, I talked out of my ass for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now I'm back in production seeing how a data set will work, but in real production, nothing works.
Yeah.
It's freaking broke, man.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's why I left the reseller, is because you were so disconnected from the real world that it almost became like a thing for me. I became like quite paranoid about it. I would look at people working in the real world and think, like, you're actually what I aspire to sort of be, because you've seen the real stuff that's going on, right? I'm just here working, almost in, bubble wrap world, right? Just shielded from the way things are. You would do an install for Vault, you would go and install it, then you'd walk away 2 days later and then just leave them to it. If there's a problem, right, so, it'll be all right. We'll come back to it later on. But in the real world, you have to live with it. You have to live and breathe the software. You get to see and feel everything that's going on, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And at Autodesk, I think there is a big element to that as well. The amount of conversations that I've had with first-party software companies where they've been like, can we have your data set, because we don't have a real-world data set to work with, right? Because they're, like I say, it's all smoke and mirrors.
I can give it to you, but it's
not going to work. So that's what number one, it's like, why are you trying to sell us more on what you're already selling us? We're here because we already use your products. So help us listen so we can help you make it better for us, and let you know what features we're going to need to advance the industry, right? And so, I mean, it's like, why are you selling me? I already got this. I don't know.
You know what? I remember about 10, maybe 15 years ago, Autodesk they had a big drive towards moving away from referring to the picks and clicks of their software. It was almost like a dirty word or taboo to mention the fact that the software has features and buttons and mouse clicks. There was a big drive about high level sort of theory and strategy and all that kind of stuff. What the solutions the software can deliver on. Talk about that and nothing else. And it almost feels like we're kind of going back to that right now, because this Autodesk University, a lot of the classes that I've seen, maybe it's just what I've been exposed to, but it's all AI kind of theory stuff that's going to be talking about. Where could things be later on, and what the software can help you with in the future, rather than
like, fix the things that are here now. I mean, I would love to hear those kind of things as well. Right. I'm big on AI, things like that. So to understand where that's going to go, but I don't want the whole freaking conference to be just about AI. I mean, again, it has its place and it's going to help us. And one of the big things, like you just mentioned, right? It's like, I told my reseller this when I was back in Oregon. I says, why don't you guys, because Autodesk doesn't do this. We talk about full life cycle of a project, right? Starting from conceptual planning, like InfraWorks is one of the first things you can use, all the different tools depending on what market you're in. But why not carry one data? That's why they're asking you for your data set. Why not work with somebody to create one real world data set that you actually take it through all the different products that gets it to the very end and it's done in ACC. You're managing it from the owner side, right? Because it'd be kind of cool to see, I created this site plan or this part of the road, and I'm showing you how to do it in InfraWorks, and then it goes into Revit, and then it goes into Civil 3D, and then it goes into Inventor for the mechanical guys to do something, and it goes into MEP. I mean, there's so many parallels, and if I could tell a story of a product journey using all the different products, to me that's also compelling, because I can see, maybe I need this. But anyway, I think there's some disconnect with that, you said.
Two guys
that real world. Yeah.
Now, two guys can actually do that, but it seems that they have been, I don't know, blocked from doing it recently. That would be the Bartles brothers.
Yeah.
They could do that with their eyes closed, but and they used to put out, tons of content, and it just kind of went. And they weren't even at AU last year. They were, they had that big thing with those two guys and Alan Gilbert that they do, the big shindig that they have that everybody loves to go to, because they always show real world scenarios, real world data. They did the chicken and waffles, which was killer. But they just kind of were,
That's interesting.
Strange to me.
So let's go back, I guess, to part of the original of this. So what was the fallout?
The fallout, yeah.
Yeah, what was the fallout? I mean, I'm curious to hear. Autodesk, did Andrew call you directly? Did his service people? I'm just curious, what was the fallout, and did you get contacted by Autodesk in regards to that?
Yeah.
Yes, and yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
And I believe you're still an expert elite, correct?
Yeah. To be honest, at the time, I wasn't really concerned about that. I wasn't really concerned about my own kind of how it would affect me. This, I didn't want to be selfish about it. But I was slightly concerned because, as an expert elite, you do appear to people to be a part of Autodesk, even though we're not. We're completely unrelated to Autodesk. We're in their club in a way, but we're not employees, right? We're not. I guess we are affiliated in some ways, but so it's a strange one for Autodesk. If they have somebody who's walking around with their logo on the shirt, but they're bad mouthing Autodesk, that's not a good look. So I was a bit concerned about that. But yeah, so now that we've, I guess, set the scene of why AU is so bad. Yeah, I released a video called, I saw on the activity wall somebody compared it to Fire Festival, and I just thought that was perfect. So I named the video Autodesk Fire Festival.
It was perfect.
It was bang on, absolutely bang on the money. And then the video just exploded. All it was just me relaying what had happened. Um, I recorded it the second I got home. I flew back to the UK from New Orleans, long flight. Got back here. The first thing I did, fired up the camera and started recording it because it was all fresh. Because in time, you can forget things and you stop caring so much about them in time. So I recorded it raw, and the second it was released, it exploded. It went through Autodesk. It just went right the way through them. Initially, the first sort of slithers of feedback were from people who were at the event, and it was just unanimous agreement at what I'd said. It was just like, yeah. And in many ways, I was glad about that because I there was how many thousands of people at the event. I had no idea at that time that the whole event was universally hated. I was just explaining what I thought, you know. I hadn't done like a consensus, right? I hadn't done a survey and thought, right, okay, the populace decides, yes, it was bad. I will make this video, right? There was none of that. I got home, had a really awful time, and I made the video, and it just rung a bell with everybody who attended the event. So that was the early stages of the feedback, but then it started to trickle through Autodesk, and it was, as my videos quite often do, it was just getting forwarded and passed between various people at Autodesk. It got posted in their internal Slack feeds.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Well, thank God for Katinka. You know, she goes to bat for us a lot. she's a great person, man, and you know, she had a lot to do with that. I'm sure keeping you engaged and still not an alumni.
Yeah, I've no doubt. I mean, Katinka did have words with me about a couple of things. Mostly, it was quite odd. It was mostly me referring to Andrew as eggnog,
Correct.
which is
yeah, I heard that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. But that was I don't know. It just in the UK we're big on nicknames in the UK, and it's not really a big deal. Everyone gets a nickname, right? And it's not an insult. It's even if it's a play on the surname, it's not really it's not supposed to be a slur. That's not what it was intended as. It was
Right.
It's like Stephen Hooper, right? The president of Fusion 360. I call him Hoop Dog, right? Hoop Doggy Dog, and that's just a nickname, right? But I guess it's because it sounds better than eggnog. I guess that one sort of is okay, maybe. I don't know, but it wasn't intended to be disrespectful, but if it came across like that, then I'd stop doing it, and I did. So yeah, but that was the only kind of bit of criticism I got from Katinka, was about my nickname for Andrew. So that could have been a lot worse. But yeah, then the video went through to the events team. Obviously, they saw it. So the team that managed and set up the whole of AU. Good, but also awkward because I met that person at
For you.
AIF in Germany. Yeah.
For us, it was somebody had to do it for us.
Yeah.
We're
so
like,
how was that like then? So they say, okay, so you get called into the principal's office, right? And then so how did that? I'm just, you know, if you could share what was the tone, you know, what kind of went on with that?
So the automotive innovation forum in Germany. I was talking to one of the guys that works on the VRED team. Good friends with the VRED team. So having a chat with those guys, and then woman walks up and, oh, I know you. You're Neil. I'm like, yeah, and yeah. So I manage the events for Autodesk. So my team were responsible for New Orleans. I saw your video, and I was just like, oh, my sort of face just dropped. And I was just like, oh, I should have expected this to happen. But she was quite cool about it. But cool on one hand, she had a lot to say to me on the other hand. Like I could tell she'd been wanting to offload a lot of things onto me. And their point of view was, we didn't expect the event to be this bad either, right? That was obviously not what we'd intended. So the venue let us down. We'd done a lot of planning, as we do, because it's not our first rodeo with Autodesk University. So we'd planned everything that we should. The venue let us down dramatically. So that was with the food, with the, you know, the facilities. In terms of the crime, she said, when we booked the event, New Orleans wasn't actually as bad as it was when we all got there. I just, is it really? Sure about that? I don't know. I don't know about that. So the message that was sort of relayed to me was, look, you're entitled to your opinion, but it would have been nice if you'd spoke to us first before you sort of released that, which I get that, but I'm not going to do
Yeah,
that.
but then it would
But I'm not gonna do
reach
that.
the masses, and it wouldn't have been as truthful, you know.
No, I mean, as a
It
content creator, you can't, everything you do and you report on or make a video on, you can't
sugarcoat
second
it.
guess.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess sugarcoat, it would be sugarcoat, because once you speak to the source and you have that conversation, your whole narrative would then have to change, even though what you originally were going to talk about was what you
Exactly.
felt.
Exactly.
So I didn't necessarily have to speak to Autodesk first before I did that, because I was just reporting on what happened. Their side of it, I guess, would have added to the video. I suppose it would have been a side note. Look, this is what happened. Blah 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 blah. And Autodesk say this. I still would have said what I'd said.
Yeah.
You know?
Don't say this. Don't say that. Well, now
Yeah,
my narrative's changed.
yeah. You think that would have made things really awkward if Autodesk had have asked me to not say certain things, because they can't really do that, because my YouTube channel is not in any way affiliated with Autodesk. They don't own it, right?
Yeah.
So they
Nor are
can't.
we.
Yeah, exactly. And the second that a company starts doing that, you lose your integrity. You lose all credibility, because
You're right.
your narrative is controlled. And you see that a lot again on YouTube with sponsored videos and
Yep.
reviews. Companies will send you a product to review, and then they'll be like, right, don't say this, don't be nasty about it. We want a positive video. And you're like, well, I can't do that. It has to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was an element of that. And obviously Andrew reached out to me as well. Which actually went better than I expected. I'm not gonna lie. When his email landed,
Yeah.
a few weeks after, I think it was a couple of weeks after the video was released, it obviously got filtered through to him. He saw it, he watched it, and I've no doubt he would have consulted with a lot of people before he spoke to me, just to make sure that what he's saying is okay. And he basically agreed with the majority of what I said, which I was really surprised at. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was crapping it. I was thinking this is going to be like even though he's not my boss, right? I was expecting an absolute lashing from Andrew, right? The proverbial headmaster's office bollocking.
Yeah.
But no, he said, look, I agree. Like, the event was terrible. It's not up to our standards. It was nowhere near as good as it should have been. It wasn't what we expected. It wasn't what we planned. We were let down, blah, blah, blah. You're totally right on this, that, and the other. So there was, I guess, an element of pandering to me as well. He didn't want to antagonize me in any way, but on the other hand, he did say, look, some of the things you reported on weren't true. So he did mention like I'd reported on the stabbings and the attacks that happened. He said that didn't happen. I don't know if he's obliged to say that because it doesn't look good to confirm that it did, or he's been misinformed. I'm not sure. Or at this point, I don't know what's true, but I had it on good authority that it did happen.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the event being such a flop played a part in him not showing up to our Expert Elite event? Because he was suddenly unavailable to not be there?
Yeah, probably. I would have thought so. At the time, there would have been...
Katinka told me when I was walking into the room, she's like, do me a favor, just don't comment on anything. I'm like,
Don't what does that mean? Wait.
I tend to be like Neil sometimes, especially when I'm aggravated. So I was very aggravated when I went into the Expert Elite thing. And usually at the Expert Elite event, we have Andrew, we have the COO, sometimes the CIO, some upper echelon people, obviously, right? And to discuss things. And a lot of us are blunt. I like the German guys. The German guys are just straight to the point. But yeah, man, he didn't show up to this one. So
I imagine at that point in time, he was fighting a lot of fires.
Yep.
There was all kinds going on. Because not just us, we're all pissed, right? We're all really annoyed.
Yeah.
We're all, talking amongst ourselves, like a little sewing circle, sort of nattering on about what's going on and all kind of. He's got to deal with his biggest corporate clients that are also there,
Yeah.
who aren't fed, who are seeing the same stuff as we're seeing. Huge companies there. Their management will be there. So he's probably with them, or he's talking to his internal teams to figure out what's going on, getting things signed off, trying to get things fixed. He would have been spinning plates like a maniac at that point, I would imagine.
Mike Davis was on the call, and I think they put him on a permanent mute during the
Not surprised. Not surprised. But yeah, he agreed with a lot of what I'd said, and one of the things that sort of stood out was his comment. He made some comments about going back to because I'd said at the end of that video that we need to go back to Vegas, right? Because it's tried and tested. You know what you're doing there. You know what to expect. And he'd said at the time in this email, we've signed a multi-year deal with the conference center. Like it's not that easy. Venues just aren't that available these days, right? They've got to be booked up way in advance. So in the email, he didn't make any. He didn't confirm what was going on, what was going to happen in the future. But I could tell that they were going to reconsider New Orleans. I didn't know that they were going to go back to Vegas at that point, which is what ended up happening. I think it's just a one-off though for this year for Vegas. But yeah, and then after that, I didn't really. See, when you're a YouTuber, you don't often see the scale of what you're doing. You're just a guy sat in your house making videos. You hit upload, and then you move on to the next thing, and then they go out into the big wide world, and people consume them, talk about them, but you very rarely hear back. So I didn't really fully understand or appreciate the scale of that video until I went to AIF in Germany, and that's when like everybody there was just like, "Oh, you're the guy that made that video. You made that. Well done, blah blah." And
history repeating itself.
Yeah. So it was quite a scary time after I released that video, but I don't know. I thought it had to be done because I really enjoy Autodesk University, and at that point in time, I just thought, is this it? Is this what it's going to be like from now on? I can't.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. From what I understand, it was a toss between Nashville and New Orleans, and why they didn't pick Nashville is unbeknownst to me. I mean, it would have been such a better venue. But
yeah, there was talk about San Jose and various other places, but I think it's finding a venue that's big enough to host that's available, and that's got the amenities there, because that was another problem with New Orleans, was the fragmentation of attendees all over the city. Vegas, the one thing I loved about going to Vegas was everybody is so just crammed into one spot.
Right there, yeah.
You can't walk 10 meters without bumping into somebody or everybody there is at the event. Whereas in New Orleans, you had people in the Sheraton, people at the Hilton, people down the road, people 2 miles up the road, and you would leave the hotel and that was it, right? And there was no there was no community aspect to it, really.
That was a highlight of my event. Was we got an Airbnb instead of a hotel. It was 1,000 times cheaper. We had our own rooms. It was so much better. That was the highlight.
But the thing is, that's better for you. But that's you taken away from the event. That's a group of people who aren't with another group of people, with more groups of people, making it one big communal event.
Right. Yeah.
Because everyone was just thrown out.
And at least if something goes wrong, like the food, like in Vegas, right? I mean, the hotel has the food court, several restaurants. So there's ways to go do other things. I mean, without having to feel like, concerned that you're not going to just have fun, and stuff like that. And so it was hard. It was hard because what you're doing at the convention, it's not like you're roaming around the expo center. That was kind of it. You can't, like you said, Neil, right? You're running in the hallways, hey, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, come do this demo. Because that's what I liked about Vegas too, right? It's like all these vendors showing off the new technologies. Oh, hey, come to this after party here. I think in Vegas
there. We
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
have to walk 2 miles to the after parties. It was
And hopefully you don't get
insane.
stabbed and,
Yeah.
and whatever else is going on type stuff.
Speaking of the after parties, so that was another thing that really, really pissed me off about this AU. In previous AUs, you'd have like the inventor customer party, the vault customer party, where the product team would go rent out a huge restaurant. I can't remember the one that they usually rent out in Vegas, but it's some Thai sort of restaurant thing.
Towel.
That's the one, Tao. Yeah.
Towel. Yep.
And it was phenomenal, really classy inside. They've got waiters walking around with sort of hors d'oeuvres and champagne and orange juice. And would you like a sausage roll, madame? Would you like a glass of champagne, sir? It's like, yes, please. And it's just like food and wine on top. In the customer presentations, announcements from last year in New Orleans, they rented out a what seemed like a school classroom or some like wedding hall, right? Just this big 4-box bloody wall thing. It was just like bright lights and a couple of tables in the middle and a bar at the side. That was it. And there was no announcements. There was nothing. It wasn't a party. It was just a gathering of random people just thrown into a room. The inventor people are in there somewhere, right? The product team are somewhere in this room. Don't know. But just talk amongst yourselves and call it a party. I was like, this is, and then it was the same with the final party.
That was disappointing.
Oh, what an absolute shambles.
Yeah, that's the wieners and egg rolls I was talking about.
But the ones in Vegas, they rent out the whole street.
Yeah,
that was cool.
With the Ferris wheel at the bottom and a band playing. What did we get last year? We had, again, just this big conference hall with a couple of food tins in the middle. And then that was it. It was like shocking. It was really bad.
Wieners. That was...
Yeah, I can't even, it's going to be, I mean, I can't even imagine right now what, obviously the pressures that event team has. Because, I would assume, and we all hope, right, that they're working overtime to make sure that this is a good experience. Because if not, I mean, listen, man, it's for me, for being a CAD manager, a technology guy, in the AEC, I mean, it's the one place you go to where, I like to say that throughout my career, I've been very misunderstood. People don't understand CAD, drafting, 3D modeling, LiDAR. When you're in the regular population, it's like, what's that? Usually I just refer to myself as a technology manager.
My wife doesn't even know what I do for a living.
Yeah. But you go there, right? You go there and you're like, holy smokes. The energy, the high of being around my people. You're like, whoa, it's a crazy feeling. It's like, it's hard to emulate somewhere else. And so
I didn't get that at all last year.
No, I didn't either.
At all. None.
No.
Not even in the expo hall.
Yeah, the energy, right? When you walked in the building, the whole energy, the vibe was.
I think me and John Mayo stayed outside and smoked cigarettes 80% of the time. Just outside, smoked cigarettes. Hey, what's going on? Oh, you're going in? Okay, hey.
But you say you hope it's going to be better. They're going to be under pressure. I mean, do you know what's happening this year at Vegas whilst AU's on?
No.
The Formula One.
Yes, correct.
Oh, yeah. Another disaster.
Yeah, I told somebody, I went, listen.
It's going to be jacked.
I said, we went to the air. I did a podcast on my podcast interview a couple of days ago. And the guy's first year going, I said, listen, it's great that you're going to Vegas. I said, all I say is I was at the airport 2.5 hours early and I had to run to my flight. So all I say is, especially with Formula One going to be in town, I'd get there way, way before, or you get the TSA pre-check to go through faster. And that was even, my boss had that, and it took him like a half hour to go through that, which is usually just a 2-minute deal. I said, if anything, the airport is probably going to be your biggest mess. So be prepared with the extra.
And
we're bringing
transportation.
I go, we're bringing in, Autodesk University is bringing in an extra 10,000 people, let alone the Formula One, that's a $1 trillion industry. So it's going to bring in tens of thousands of people. So it's going to be interesting.
The strip is the main straight on the track, and it'll be closed because they have to build an entire track, don't they? So whilst they use on, the strip's going to be closed. There's going to be thousands and thousands of people working for the teams in and around the area. The whole supply chain in Vegas is going to be like beyond capacity.
Taxed. Yeah, taxed.
And the prices of everything's gone up. I mean, I'm still not sure. I'm pretty sure I'm not going this year. I just can't. It's too expensive to go.
Insane.
Yeah.
For 3 days.
Yeah. It's absolutely mental. And
we are stuck. We're strictly to those 3 days. They want us gone. Completely out of the hotels.
Who's they, Autodesk or your employer?
The hotels.
Really?
Want Autodesk and everyone gone the third day, the third afternoon, gone. Got to be completely cleared out.
Even if you paid for the room yourself, like for an extra couple of nights.
Yeah, but you're going to pay a lot more.
It jacks up. The price is going up.
It's going to
like
be
twice
like
or 3 times
a night.
Yeah.
But if you're not a speaker, if you're just an irregular attendee, then how does the hotel know that you're an Autodesk University attendee?
Well, I think they're jacked up the prices to force you out.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna jack up the prices so that way you're like, oh, I'm gonna stay another day.
And it's
no, you're not.
Triple the price. It's not double. It's triple or
you
more.
You want to pay $1,200 a night? Good luck. All right, thank you.
But I think that whole event's going to put pressure on the AU team because all the services that they're used to using, the suppliers.
And whose fault is that? Why couldn't it have been 2 weeks earlier or 2 weeks after?
Well, just like anything else, though, right? I mean, again, the logistics of planning 10,000 people, right, in a venue for hotels and convention center for classes. I mean, I can't even imagine the different facilities that could do that, right? Another place, right, would be San Diego. I know they do the Esri conference there, right? Chicago. I mean, but again, they already had New Orleans locked in for 3 years, let alone, and now they're trying to do something last minute. I don't even think Dallas has anything.
Dallas does, bro.
In a year notice? No, I know they do, but within a year notice?
Within a year notice?
You know, so that's probably when they probably like,
but
going back to Vegas.
This is money like Autodesk has.
Yeah.
You can do this. Trust me.
The Intel event was at Dallas, I think. Was it the Marriott? The
Marriott.
Yeah. Yep. The Gaylord Texan or something it was called.
Yep.
Yeah, the Gaylords. Right. Yeah, that's not too far from me. That's a beautiful place.
That's a freaking awesome place.
And
that's probably where they would have had it in Nashville, was at the Gaylord.
Yeah.
Because it's all inside. It's right by the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah, that would have been kick-ass. But
when I was there, I got the same sort of sense with that place as I got from the Venetian. Like it could have quite easily held AU at that place. Very similar sort of layout. Quite well equipped.
Restaurants, stores, things to do in that general vicinity.
But it's just availability, isn't it? We don't know where it was.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like saying AU should have been 2 weeks early. Well, it might not be. There might be other conferences already booked. So I just don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, I'm a huge Formula One fan, like fanatical about Formula One. So to not go because of the Formula One is like, it's killing me. It's actually making me want to self-harm because I've never been to a Formula One race. Like I can name you every driver, every team principal. Like
but you got the luxury of going to see the Isle of Man where you're at.
Not for me. Not for me. I mean,
you don't like bikes?
No, I mean, I don't want to be decapitated by a flying bike. Thank you very much. I'm quite all right. I've seen it on TV. I've seen how fast they scream down like the roads in the Isle of Man.
On 2 wheels at that.
Yeah. I'm not really a biker though, so I'm not for me. I've never been to a Formula One race, so to have like AU and Formula One at the same time, it was almost like when I first heard it, it was like the stars had aligned, but then the logistics of it and the finances.
Probably be cheaper for you just to go to Formula One.
Visit us. Actually, you probably have more fun.
I'm in the lobby. Come see me.
You probably have more fun that way.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a shame. I'm still not. If I can get a sponsor aligned, then maybe. Like quite a few of the previous AU visits that I've had have been sponsored by Intel or whoever, right? And
or Dell.
or Dell, yeah, they want something out of it in return, but they cover either traveling costs or ticket costs or whatever. But with not being a speaker, that's
Mhm.
I can get a media pass because I'm technically a journalist, which is a bit weird. So you
I
can get them
put
with a
in
media
8
pass.
proposals.
8.
Nil
Yeah.
on that, Neil. 0.
I
So
know.
so so Neil, in your network, we're hearing it. I mean, what's the vibe from all these people that got turned down?
It's exactly what you're saying. I don't.
Bullocks.
You can only take a stab in the dark as to what's going on, but it's all from my perception. It seems like Autodesk want to sort of design a narrative for the whole event, and that seems to be AI and sort of strategy and business solutions rather than actual picks and clicks and software talks.
Sales.
And yeah, I'm into AI as well, but I don't want the entire class roster to be filled with
Correct.
people just talking about what could happen with AI, how AI could help you in the future. It's not quite there yet, but we maybe, right? And with it being majority Autodesk employee kind of delivered, and I don't know if that's just. I mean, all I've done is I went to LinkedIn, did hashtag AU 2023, looked at what came up. They're not people on they're not my connections. It's just the posts, and they're all
Yeah.
Autodesk employees for the most part, saying that they've got 2 or 3 classes accepted, and then the likes of you, Todd, and myself, and a lot of the other expert elites, a lot of the experienced guys, getting turned down. In all fairness, my class was a bit of the one I put in was a bit crap. I was like, well, I don't really want to do an invented back to basics sort of a class. I don't really want to talk about vaults. So my class proposal was, it was titled "So You Want to Make Tutorials," and I was basically going to data dump all my experience of 10 years on YouTube on how to make tutorials, like what software to use, what's like how the audience works, what people's expectations are, what to do, what not to
Guarantee
do.
that would have been a full class.
Probably, yeah.
Guaranteed.
Well, and there's like, okay, so if you had the opportunity to present that topic, is that something that you would be interested in presenting, or is that was really just
Does it get a
I'm
ticket
just,
for you?
yeah, I'm just curious because, we'll talk offline, but I just
We have
curious.
something in the pipeline, as I'd
Okay.
mentioned in our private message before.
Yeah.
Neil.
So I'm just
Yeah.
curious because to me, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, okay, so I think it's a mixed bag, right? When I think of going to conferences, right? Like you said, I think it's good to have some of the future stuff in there. I think there's good to have some good strategies, business solutions. I mean, if you have the right mix, clicks and picks, and things like that that are off topic, like, hey, end of the day, I think, especially the way that the industry is going, right, is that in some fashion, we are all content creators in some fashion, right? And so then to learn best practices from a YouTuber that's done it for 10 years, I mean, that to me would be very appealing, especially for the younger generation coming up that's been doing, that wants to be, I'll say YouTube famous, but, they're coming up with the technology a little bit more than folks Todd's and I age and maybe older who are like, I don't want, that has nothing to do for me. But I know that we also have to attract the younger generation and keep them interested. And what better than to teach people some best practices of how to do that? It's from
Yeah,
somebody who's doing it all the time.
and the class wasn't just going to be entirely about how to do it. It was also going to be about sort of setting expectations. Because I hear see so many people wanting to be a YouTuber, wanting to create tutorials, right? Because they think
My
they're going to.
kids want to be them so bad. I'm like, dude, I can't teach you how to do that. You got to figure
No,
it
it's not
out.
honestly, like even to get where I've got, you're in such the minority. There's every person on the planet has the ability to upload a video to YouTube, right? And to get noticed, to stand out and to grow an audience today, after the platform's matured to the point where it is at now, it's almost impossible. Almost impossible.
Yep.
So it's not a realistic career that anyone can target towards. And even I wouldn't want to either, because your employer is basically YouTube. They're an employer and a business partner, and they are the worst business partner you could possibly want. You can't speak to them. You can't ask for help. they can basically cut you off at any point they want.
They change the algorithms, aka the rules.
They don't even tell you they don't tell you the rules. They don't.
Yeah.
Your entire existence is trying to second guess what this goddamn algorithm wants from you. Right. What have I got to do? I know this content that I've created is useful. I know there's thousands of people who want to see this. How do I get them to see this? You know what I mean? And they don't.
Yeah,
they
you
don't
can always sell feet pics, man.
Take a breath. This is one of the things that kind of is caused me to go on a sabbatical at the moment, because after taking a year out of employment to sort of do the YouTube gig full time for a while, in the hopes that it would kind of at least pay some of the bills, it wasn't happening, right? But when you're grafting so hard, and it's entirely my decision, nobody forced me to do it, but you can't help but get deflated when you do see people quite happy to throw $30 at a girl so you can see her with her pants off. But they're not prepared to pay $5 for a maybe a monthly subscription to some thing that's going to help them in their career. But no, love, here's $30, shows you bits and pieces, right? Do you know what I mean? It's deflating.
It's deflating, yes.
Yeah.
Good
and you watch other YouTubers, right? Not they're doing a podcast, but maybe they're a YouTuber that offers no value whatsoever to people's lives. They're just a drama YouTuber, a prankster. They'll do a podcast where they're interacting live with the audience, and they're throwing money at them. Just, here's $50 so you can read my message, right? Like super chats this and bits that, and they're getting thousands of dollars per stream just from people that want to be noticed. And you've got an entire ecosystem of like online educators in the professional space who earn absolutely nothing. You can't, right? So it's deflating after a while.
Upside down world.
But that tells you, unfortunately, that lets us know kind of where our society is at, where the value, I get it, there's value in entertainment, but at the same time though, it's like, I think you guys get where I'm talking about.
Yeah. And that's part of what this class was going to be. It was going to be an awareness of what the current state of the audience is. People at this point expect free education. They're so used to getting videos for free. They're not prepared to pay you for your work. They expect to be able to go to YouTube and see tips for SolidWorks, tips for Inventor. If I'm stuck on an AutoCAD button, they expect to be able to find a tutorial that'll tell them how to do it. And they almost feel entitled to be able to consume that for free as fast as possible. Because heaven forbid the creator of that video introduces himself, explains the video. He's met with a barrage of, get on with it, mate. Can you hurry up and get to the point? Right. And that's the kind of entitlement that is out there right now. And I think a lot of people who want to create tutorials don't really know that. They just think that they're going to put so much good out to the world that it's going to be met with sort of open arms and royalties galore. It's not really the case. You have to go into it with the full expectation that you'll get nothing from it other than a couple of thank you comments. That's pretty much it. And especially in our space, because we're like sort of a niche within a niche in some ways. Mm-hmm. In fact, we're a niche within a niche within a niche, right? There's engineering, and then there's Autodesk software, and then there's the product you specialize in. So your target market for videos is so small. You don't make a dent in the platform. So, I mean, take my channel, for example. I've been going for 10 years now. I've got 600 odd videos. My ad revenue monthly is about $200. That's it. So, and that was sort of contributed to the reason why I ended up sort of moving away from it. I had to, because, as an Autodesk consultant, working as sort of a supplier of services for Autodesk software, you can work a day and I'll get roughly the same amount of revenue in a day's work than I would do making videos for about 3 or 4 months on YouTube. That's sort of the parallels that we've got going on here. So it wasn't really a good use of your time. And it's like I alluded to this at the start of this podcast. In the early days, it didn't matter because you were just 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. You could do it on your lunch break. And I was doing it on my lunch break, right? Just firing up the camera and just blah, 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 hit upload, no editing whatsoever, just up it goes. But 10 years later, you've got higher standards for yourself for production value. And it suddenly takes days to make a video rather than minutes. So you're faced with a choice. What do you do? Do you regress back to those sort of poorer standards that you had early on, and the audience would notice that, or do you just take a step back and realize that you don't really have that kind of time anymore to invest into it?
So it says you got 81,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
challenge you listeners to follow Neil to get him to 100,000 within the end of this year.
I mean, that would be the goal. Is the goal's always been to actually the goal always changes, and this would be another sort of footnote in the class that I would do is you set targets for yourself that you'll be happy when you get to this point, but then once you get to that point, the bar's raised and you want to get to the next point. So for me, originally it was like 1,000 subscribers, then it was 10,000 subscribers, and then it was I'll feel like I've made it once a brand speaks to me and I've got brand recognition, right? And then that happened. Then you want another brand because you think, well, that was quite useful. I got a free 3D mouse from 3D Connection. I wonder if I can get a laptop, right? And then you just keep on going and going and going. And then before you know it, the bar just constantly moves. And so at the moment, 100,000 would be ideal because you get it's more the recognition from YouTube, if anything else, because you get the play button, the silver play button to say your channel's made it to a certain milestone. But my channel's in an odd place right now because it's 10 years old, 81,000 subscribers. A lot of those people are now, they're gone. They subscribed maybe 7-8 years ago when they were learning inventor, when they were maybe working in a certain company, but they changed careers. They maybe graduated, right? They were learning at college and they're just not watching the videos anymore. And that's the other volatile side of creating software tutorials. Your audience is so it's volatile. It really is, because you get people coming across your videos when they need help or it's during a certain point of them in their life, but they're not really subscribing for you, the creator. They're subscribing because they want what you're doing. They want the end result of what you're doing. So they sort of use you as a bookmark. I'll come back to this guy if I need him in the future. But like I say, they change jobs, they graduate, they retire, they die. I mean, Christ, over the course of 10 years, right? People come and go. And yeah, with software, it's you don't have that retention of viewers as you would do with entertainment channels, where they've got more of a sort of a parasocial aspect to the viewer creator relationship. It's sure people subscribe for the person.
You gotta have that hook too to keep them there to watch.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because like you said, right? Like you started this. So I went to your YouTube, went to popular. Right? Your most popular video has 408,000 views, which is amazing. But that was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And you can see how you're getting well over 6-figure views every time, all these videos. And now it's just crazy. Like you said, algorithm and fatigue and, you
see, the thing is, those videos, those are my most popular ones because you've sorted it by most popular.
Yeah.
Today, if I was to release a video, it depends. And this is what I was saying about YouTube being a terrible boss and a terrible business partner, because it's so random. But I'd be lucky to get 2,000 views if I released a video today.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's because the majority of the subscribers aren't there anymore. There isn't an audience. There isn't a big audience for the videos. It's work. How many people realistically are on YouTube looking for work stuff? Not many. But whenever I've worked with brands in the past, and they're asking about what kind of views do you get, I've always had to say, look, my videos are slow burners. They'll get few views at the start as soon as they're released, but they gradually increase over time as more people learn Inventor. In the future, they'll search and find the videos later on. So it's the reverse of how YouTube normally works. Normally, it's a creator will release a video, gets a huge burst of views originally in the early days, and then it just sort of dies off. Complete opposite with me. It just slowly, gradually increases. Mm-hmm. And those videos that are at the top are the ones that really got picked up in the algorithm and got dispersed out to people searching for things. But the majority of them just don't. They'll sort of fizzle out at a few thousand views, sometimes 10 to 20,000. But it's they're old now. So, unless I replenish them with new videos, the people that come across them will see that they're old and probably won't watch them in their entirety. And that's also quite damaging for your channel as well.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. Well, we definitely need to follow up after this because we do have some things in the works that we definitely would love for you to be a part of if you are willing to take a chance.
1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So let me ask you this. So in the grand scheme of things, do you have any advice for, the CAD BIM community at large?
Keep an eye on the Autodesk Former, Fusion, and Flow happenings. That's an atom bomb waiting to drop, I think.
Yeah, we're on the Forma side.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of change happening with Autodesk's product stack in the future. I've spoken about it on my channel. I've made many videos about it.
Mhm.
A lot of it's speculation at this point, but it's reading between the lines, and the lines are quite clear. Because Autodesk can't really come out and confirm what their plans are for the future. They're a publicly traded company. They can't do that. But you can look at what they're doing and make some educated guesses. And it looks like Fusion, Former, Flow, the cloud. I don't know what they call them. Not instances. What do they call them? Cloud tenants or something like that? Or
It doesn't matter anyway. By the time this podcast episode releases, they'll probably change the name 10 times anyway.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, all I'd say is just keep an eye on that. Don't change what you're doing based on what might happen in the future. I hear that a lot. Should I move to Fusion 360 from Inventor if that's where Autodesk are headed? And I'm like, no, Inventor's the best today. Stick with what's best today. When Autodesk do decide to move to something else, there will be a roadmap. There will be a transition plan for moving people over. They're not just going to turn off Inventor or Revit, right? And then just go, right, you're going, try Former, try Fusion. It doesn't work. It's not going to work like that. I suppose it has. I mean, they've switched off plenty of things, and like Showcase was something they just switched off without a replacement, or their Showcase. So there've been plenty of products in the past, but not their flagship ones. So stick with what's best today, but keep an eye out on what's going on. Subscribe to a single license within the business and see what's going on. Take a look at it, learn it, investigate it, see how it could work for the business in the future. But stick to what you know for now. So yeah, I think there's changes ahead with that, with the desktop products and how it interfaces with the cloud.
Yeah.
100,
Todd, do you have anything, Todd, you want to add to before we wrap up here?
Only thing I want to add is I'm just super thrilled to be able to sit down with you and shoot the shit with you, man. It's always good to, yeah.
And you, mate. There's so much more shit to be shot, but there's only so much time to shoot the shit.
Yes.
Well,
Indeed.
fair enough. And we'll definitely look forward to talking to you and maybe expanding on this conversation even more. So Neil, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And thank you for being a part of this Augie World, the podcast episode. And for those listening to this podcast, thank you for pressing play.